Okay, thank you very much, Raya Melt, organizing this video, this Shiur. And we really appreciate your work. We can stream it live on Facebook and it can reach many, many people. So thank you very much. Basically, this series of Shiurim, we're going to be having them every Sunday morning at 9:30 exactly. And the concept is, the idea that we're going to be talking about is Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. And it's interesting because during this time, during the summertime, there's a minhag, there's a tradition to study Pirkei Avot, to study the ethics of our fathers. And the reason to that is two. The first reason is that they actually started from right after Pesach and throughout 6 weeks, which is exactly the amount of chapters that we have in Pirkei Avot. And that prepares us for Matan Torah, for Chag HaShavuot, when we receive the Torah. And as we all know, receiving the Torah comes right after we have Derech Eretz, as the known saying, Derech Eretz kadma laTorah. Derech Eretz is an introduction to receiving the Torah. That's basically the idea behind learning the ethics of our fathers before Shavuot, before Matan Torah, because we know the first thing is to be a mensch. And once we are what we call a mensch, we act in the right way, then we are vessels to receive Hashem's wisdom. Because Hashem's wisdom is an elevated wisdom, and it comes once we are ready and prepared. That's the first reason. But the second reason is, and that applies throughout the whole summer, basically. In the summer, we know there's vacation, and people aren't all the time at work. The schools are off. People go out, and people are exposed much more to the world. And one of the most important things when we are exposed to the world is to know how to approach the world in the correct manner, in the correct way. And this is the reason why we learn the ethics. This is the time to learn the ethics. Because when we are at home, or when we are studying, we are in shul, the kids are at school, so there they have their teachers that make sure that everything is okay. But in the summer, when it's vacation, it's important to learn the ethics of our fathers. That's the second reason. Just before we begin with the first Mishnah, I would like to share a short story with you. And it's a very interesting story about a bunch of women that attended a gathering, a Chabad gathering in Boston. And from time to time, they have these gatherings where sometimes it's the shluchim that come together, sometimes it's the shluchot that get together, the men and the women. And there was a bunch of women that came from New York. They went to Boston, and they were supposed to catch a flight back that same night and back to New York, basically. And what happened was they missed the flight. They missed it by, like, let's say an hour, and they were stuck in the airport. The next flight would be only in the morning. They did not know what to do. So immediately one of the women called up the secretary of the Rebbe, Rabbi Chodakov, and they asked the Rebbe what to do, basically. What should they do? When she asked the question, so she used the word, we are stuck. We are stuck in Boston, and we don't know what to do. So the secretary of the Rebbe, Rabbi Chodakov, answers them back, and he says the Rebbe doesn't understand the meaning of stuck. What is the meaning of stuck? So she started explaining what stuck means, and Rabbi Chodakov said, no, the Rebbe knows the literal translation to the word stuck. But the Rebbe says there's no such a thing being stuck. Everything comes from Hashem. So there's no such a thing that you are, it's kind of by mistake or out of the blue or with no meaning to it. That's the idea of stuck. But a Jew is never stuck. He's always in the world. Wherever he goes, whatever he does is for a purpose. So if Hashem decided that you'll miss this airplane, it's for a reason. And this woman, this shlicha, ends the story, and she says there are several Jewish families, several Jewish women that light candles every Shabbos night because we were stuck in Boston for that night. So this is an interesting story that shows us the approach to us, to our lives, that there's no such a thing being stuck, and whatever we do, wherever we are, we always have a certain purpose. I would like to start with the first Mishnah. The first Mishnah is an interesting Mishnah. It says, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai umesara liYoshua, which means that Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Sinai and he gave it on to Yehoshua. And there's a known question of many Mefarshim that ask, what does it mean Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Sinai? Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Hashem. He didn't receive it from the Mount Sinai. He received it at Mount Sinai. That's something that you can say. Moshe kibel Torah beSinai, at Sinai. But he didn't receive it from the mountain. He received it from Hashem. And this is a very interesting idea that the Rebbe brings. The idea is that Moshe Rabbeinu learned something very, very important from this mountain, from this Mount Sinai. And that's why what we say is that Moshe Rabbeinu kibel, received Torah miSinai, from the mountain itself, because the mountain taught him a lesson. The mountain taught him a very important lesson, and that's why we say that he received the Torah from Sinai. So what did this mountain teach Moshe? The Medrash tells us a very interesting thing that happened. Before they received the Torah, Hashem was debating which mountain should we give the Torah on. So there was the tallest mountain, and that tallest mountain said, the angel of that tallest mountain said, you should give it on me, I'm the tallest. And there was the widest mountain that also wanted the Torah to be given on him. And also then, there were a few mountains that each of them had a very good excuse why they should be the ones that Matan Torah would be on them. But Hashem saw one mountain that was humble. Mount Sinai doesn't have anything special about it. It's not a tall mountain. It's not a big mountain. It's not even a pretty mountain. There was no trees, nothing. And that's the lesson that this mountain taught Moshe. Moshe, we know, was the most humble person in the whole world. That's what the Torah says about him. V'ha'ish Moshe anav me'od. He was humble. And that's why he was the one to give us the Torah. Not Aaron, not the Levim, specifically the one that's humble. And this connects to the idea of the ethics of our fathers. Before we approach studying Torah, learning Torah, it's important to be humble. Because when we are humble, we become a vessel. We become a vessel that can receive, that can accept. We could even think about it that in a way, when we learn anything, when we learn secular studies also, if you aren't humble, if you don't come with an approach that says, I'm here to listen, to understand, you won't be able to succeed in studying the Torah. And that's something that applies even in secular studies and secular chokhmas. But in Torah, it's for sure that way. In Torah, when you want to understand Hashem's seichel, when you want to understand Hashem's wisdom, the only way we can do it is if we are truly vessels. So this is the first Mishnah. Now the third Mishnah actually that's brought, and this is another Mishnah that we're going to be discussing. Just before that, I want to tell you another story, another interesting story about there was one shliach, one Chabad shliach that was unfortunately in the hospital. Something happened to him, and he needed to go to the hospital. So his son comes to the Rebbe, and as many of you heard, the Rebbe used to give out in the times of before Rosh Hashanah, right before Rosh Hashanah, and before, if I'm not mistaken, Simchas Torah also, the Rebbe used to give out cake. He gave out cake for a sign of blessing. It was a honey cake, for a sweet and happy year, and we're coming up close to Rosh Hashanah now, so we should all, Bezrat Hashem, have a happy and a sweet year. And the Rebbe gave him this, what's called lekach, which is the honey cake. And he told the Rebbe that my father is in hospital and he needs a blessing for a refuah shlema, for good health. So the Rebbe said that he shouldn't be worried. And once he finishes his mission in the hospital, then everything will be okay. So this is a very interesting answer of the Rebbe. But this shliach, basically, his son told him the answer of the Rebbe. And he understood that he probably needs to talk to the Jewish doctors there and to try and influence them and try to talk to them about Judaism. So that's what he did. He basically spoke to a few doctors, and he told them about kashrus, and he told them about tefillin, and he even put on tefillin on a few of the doctors. And after a week, he was left free, and they said everything's okay and there's no problem. That's a very interesting idea, because it shows us again that there's no such a thing when someone is stuck. You're not there, even if someone is in a hospital, in a simple way, we would look at a hospital as, well, something is wrong with the person, and he's unfortunately sick and he doesn't feel well. So that's why he is in hospital. There's no other way. Well, why would Hashem put someone in the hospital? So this is the approach of the Rebbe. The Rebbe says you're there on a mission. There's an outside covering, which is, well, the doctors say you have to go to hospital, you're not feeling well, but that's only a chitzoni thing. It's not the real reason why you're there. And once you deal with the essence, then automatically the outside is also removed, which means the technical issues, the health issues are also removed. This can teach us so much about curing ourselves. When we want to cure ourselves, sometimes the cure comes from improving our spirituality, from improving ourselves in an inner manner, and then automatically it can reflect on the outside. And we know that even the doctors, there are many researchers from doctors that say that if you keep a positive spirit, and if you are happy, and if you're healthy, especially spiritually, and also in your mindset, then it influences even your physical body, basically. So this is the importance of actually keeping a positive way, and also remembering that we never stuck. Wherever we are there for a purpose. I want to end with a short vort about the third Mishnah, which is an interesting vort because it talks about receiving rewards. Now, that Mishnah says, it's very interesting. The Mishnah says, don't be like a servant who serves his master in order to receive a reward. You should work, and you should do all the mitzvahs just for the sake of Hashem. Now, this is a very high level. This is an interesting thing. Working and keeping the mitzvahs, we all know that there is going to be a reward. And the Mishnah and the Torah says it itself. It's not even the Mishnah. It's the Torah that says that im bechukotai telechu, which means if you will follow the laws, v'natati gishmechem beitam, I will give you you'll have rain, and you'll have food, and you won't have any sicknesses and anything like that. So we know that rewards in Judaism is something that exists, and it's also something important. But nevertheless, the ethic that the Torah is teaching us in the Mishnah is always to know to mekayem the mitzvot from love. The Rambam says that the purpose of the person is not to do it out of fear. Out of fear is, or out of bribes, is something that applies to children. You want to cause a child to listen to what you say, you've got to tell him, I'll give you some candy, I'll give you a treat, I'll take you out on a vacation, I'll get you a present. But the ultimate goal of an adult is always to mekayem mitzvot for the sake of Hashem. Just doing it because we love Hashem, because we want to do what's right and what's good, and then our mitzvot are pure. We must always remember that the reward is going to come. The reward is going to be here. We are going to receive a reward, and it's part of Hashem's will. Hashem wants us to receive the reward. But nevertheless, we are doing it not because of the reward, but because we love Hashem. That's the idea. That's a third Mishnah, basically. And just to end off, there's an interesting question that the Rebbe asks. And the Rebbe says, well, we know that Hashem wants to give us the reward. So why doesn't the reward come right after we do the mitzvah? We know that there's a law in the Torah. One of the laws that the Torah says is that you have to pay someone on the same day that he did his job, that he did his work. That's one of the mitzvot that we have. Beyomo titen secharo. On the day that the person does his job, you must pay him. And that's an ethical law, and it's a very important law. And how could thankfully Hashem is not a politician. So how could he tell us to pay on the same day, but himself, he doesn't pay us on the same day? We can put on tefillin, but we won't receive the reward today. We'll receive the reward in the future, in the next world sometimes. So how could it be? Why doesn't Hashem listen to his own rules that he told us? The Rebbe says an amazing idea. The Rebbe says, many of us have heard in Israel, there's a musag, there's a known idea that's called a kablan. If you want to build your house, you get the land, and then you call up what's called a kablan. A kablan is like what would be the right word? He is in charge of basically building the whole house from beginning, and he does the whole job. He's got the project to build the whole house. And the way that we pay kablanim sometimes is you pay the kablan not for every window that he built. Yeah, let's say he put a window up. Well, he's not going to come to you and say, pay me for this window. He's got a project. Sorry. He's got a project. His project is to build the whole house. It's his job yet. The reason that we are not stuck in the world is because we don't look at the small things that we do. We are part of a big picture. We are part of a project. And this project is making the whole world a house for Hashem. Making it a place where Hashem can feel comfortable living. Where Hashem can feel like he walks into the world, for example, and he feels at home. And this is something that comes by each and every small mitzvah that we do. We put on one tefillin, we give a bit of tzedakah, we act with love to someone else, with kindness. These are things that makes Hashem feel at home. And this is one big mission that we have, one big project. That's why the reward isn't today, because we still haven't finished our entire project of building this house for Hashem here in the world. This is basically the idea behind these two Mishnayot in Pirkei Avot. And hopefully next week we'll discuss Perek Bet, which is also interesting and interesting Perek. We'll bring also a few Mishnayot together with a few stories. Before we end, I would like to share one other short story, basically from the Rebbe, also about a shaliach. And by the way, each and every one of us are shluchim. We are all shluchim, and we all have a mission, like we said, to build this house for Hashem. So there was this shliach that was supposed to move from one city to another. He started off in one city, and then he got an offer to serve as a rabbi in another city. He asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, perfect, you can go for it. So he had this period of time, this week, where, or it was even a month, where he already finished his job at one place, but he didn't move yet to that new city. And he felt like he's not achieving anything in that month. He's not doing much. So he asked the Rebbe, what should I do? The Rebbe told him an interesting idea. The Rebbe wanted to give him encouragement, encourage him to really for this month wherever he is. The Mishkan used 40 years. The Mishkan traveled all around the desert for 40 years. And when the Mishkan traveled, there was sometimes that the Jews used to settle just for one day. And when they settled for one day, they built the entire Mishkan, which means they were carrying it in whatever, in suitcases, not in suitcases, but in carriages. And when they were carrying the Mishkan wasn't built. But when they sat down and when they had that rest for just one day, it didn't need to be for a period of a month or a year, just for one day, they used to work very hard to build up this Mishkan. And this teaches us a great lesson. It teaches us that even if we are doing something for one day, or even for 1 week, or for 1 month, or even for 1 hour, we can do it in the best way possible, exactly in the same way as the Leviim built the Mishkan just for one day, even though it was a massive thing to build, it was important for them to feel like they're not stuck. They're not just there for one day in a place and they don't even mean to be there. They're there for a purpose, and therefore they would build the Mishkan. And that teaches me a lot. Even 1 hour of my day should be used in the best way possible, because each hour is important. So this is the idea, basically, that we can learn from this parak in Pirkei Avot. Once again, thank you very much to Raya and to Mordechai Meltz that are of this app that we can Facebook and Zoom. So I'm looking forward to seeing you Bezrat Hashem next week on Sunday at 9:30 exactly on Chabad of Rechavia page, Facebook, and we'll be sending live Zoom. Thank you very much.